Welcome students. This presentation of Bachelor of Arts first year, subject economics, semester 1, course code ECC101 and the title of the course is Microeconomics 1. The title of the unit is Unit 4, Production and Cost, and the module name is Law of Variable Proportions. Myself, Dr. Vikrant Vijayamutliar, Assistant Professor of Economics, Government College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Kepengo. The outline of the presentation is as follows: meaning of production function, fixed and variable factors, and law of variable proportions. At the end of the E module, students will be able to understand the following learning outcomes: the meaning of production function, and to examine the different stages of law of variable proportions. So what is the theory of production? In the words of Ferguson, the theory of production consists of how the producer, given the state of technology, combines various inputs to produce a definite amount of output in an economically efficient manner. And theory of production also seeks to explain the relationship between input and output. So theory of production is mainly concerned with two things. We can say the production function, law of production, and law of returns. So production function refers to the functional relationship between the quantity of good produced, that is output, and the factors of production, that is inputs, necessary to produce it. According to Watson, the relationship between a firm's physical production, that is output, and the material factors of production that we used as inputs referred to as a production function. In this production function, we have to know about the fixed and variable factors of production. A fixed factor of production is one whose quantity cannot be readily be changed, or it is rigid throughout the production function. Examples include major prices or pieces of equipment, suitable factory space, and key managerial personnel. A variable factor of production is one whose usage rate can be changed easily. Examples which includes electrical power consumption, transportation services, and most probably the raw material which we used as inputs in the production function. So let's begin with the law of variable proportion. The law of variable proportion states that as the quantity of one factor is increased, keeping the other factor fixed, the marginal product of that factor will eventually decline. This means that up to the use of certain amount of variable factor, marginal product of the factor may increase, and after a certain stage, it starts diminishing. When the variable factor becomes relatively abundant, the marginal product may become negative. The assumptions we assume before going to law of variable proportions, these are some assumptions are as follows. The first assumption is a constant state of technology. The state of technology is assumed to be given and unchanged. If there is an improvement in the technology, then the marginal product may rise instead of diminishing. The second assumption is a fixed amount of other factors. There must be some inputs whose quantity is kept fixed. It is only in this way that we can alter the factor product proportions and know its effects on output. The law does not apply if all the factors are proportionally verified or flexible. The third assumption is a possibility of varying the factor proportions. The law is based upon the possibility of varying the proportions in which the various factors can be combined to produce a product. The law does not apply if the factors must be used in fixed proportion to yield a product. Then we will illustrate the law. The law of variable proportion is illustrated in the following table, which is on the next slide, and about that the figure also. And suppose there is a given amount of land in which more and more labor or a variable factor is used to produce wheat. So here the schedule is given. Unit of labor are there, total product, average product, and marginal product are there. So with respect to this table, we have illustrated this diagram. This diagram is of law of variable proportion. So in this, on x-axis we are measuring labor, and y-axis we are measuring the total productivity. Here there are three stages: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. In a stage 1, that is also considered as a stage of increasing returns. In this stage, total product increases at an increasing rate up to a point. This is because the efficiency of fixed factor increases as an additional unit of the variable factors are added to it. In this figure, which is adjacent to the presentation, from the origin to the point F, slope of the total product curve is Tp, is increasing. That means the curve is Tp is a concave upwards up to the point F, which means that the marginal product MP of labor rises. The point F, where the total product stops increasing at an increasing rate and start increasing at a diminishing rate, is called the point of inflection. Corresponding vertically to this point of inflection, marginal product of labor is maximum, after which it diminishes. This stage is also called the stage of increasing returns because the average product of the variable factor increases throughout this stage. This stage ends at the point where the average product curve reaches to its highest point. Then we move to the stage 2. In this stage 2, it's also known as the stage of diminishing returns. In this stage, total product continues to increase but at a diminishing rate until it reaches its maximum point H, where the second stage ends. In this stage, both the marginal product and the average product of labor are diminishing but are positive. This is because the fixed factor becomes inadequate relative to the quantity of the variable factor. At the end of the second stage, that is, I can say that point M, marginal product of labor is 0, which corresponds to the maximum point H of the total product curve Tp. This stage is important because the firm will seek to produce in this range. Then we are moving ahead with the stage 3. Stage 3 is also known as the stage of negative returns. In this stage 3, total product start declining and therefore the total product curve slopes downward. As a result, marginal product of labor is negative and the marginal product curve falls below the x-axis. In this stage, the variable factor that we can consider in this law of variable proportion is a labor is too much relative to the fixed factor. Why the following are the causes of increasing returns to a factor? Fuller utilization of a fixed factor. In the initial stages, fixed factor remains underutilized. Its fuller utilization calls for a greater application of the variable factor. Hence, initially, additional units of the variable factor add more and more to the total product or a total output, I can say. Its increased efficiency of the variable factor. Additional application of the variable factor causes process-based division of labor that raises efficiency of the factor, and accordingly, marginal product of the factor tends to rise. The causes of decreasing returns to factor. Fixity of the factor, or we can say that as more and more units the variable factor continue to be combined with the fixed factor, the later gets overutilized, hence it starts diminishing returns. Imperfect factor substitutability. Factors of production are imperfect substitutes for each other, and more labor cannot be continuously used in place of additional capital. Applicability of a law of variable proportion. Law of variable proportion applies to all the fields of production like agriculture, industry and so on, and this law applies to any field of production where some factors are fixed and others are variable. That is the reason why it is called as a law of universal application, and application to agriculture, or we can say that application to industry. Students, you can refer, these are the references for further readings. Thank you.